You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our hearts. We've got love that won't depart. We are always in the stands, 'cause we're super Dolphin fans. Football is mighty rough. Winning gets awful tough. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker, and not with me today is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain, because he is, as you know, if you've been listening, currently spending his final night in South Florida before he begins the trek towards Central New York, where he will arrive Thursday evening this week. So no Brain tonight and no Brain later this week on Thursday for the preview show. But listen, we're not going to leave you hanging here on the Same Old Dolphin Show. We're not going to subject you to an entire episode just of me. No, we can't do that. We can't do that at all. We do have a special guest joining us today. You know him as one of the co-hosts of one of my absolute favorite podcasts on the internet. That is Go Time Dolphins. So joining us today, back for the first time in a long time, is our good friend Kadeem Simmons. Kadeem, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well, actually, which is weird given that the Dolphins are 2-5. But hey, there's more to life than the Dolphins. There's also Man United, who are also losing, and also, considering all my sports teams are really bad, I'm doing really, really, really well. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, that's good. But, you know, Man United did something that the Dolphins have as yet not done, and I think are probably unlikely to do before the end of the season. And that is they got rid of their head coach today. So Eric Ten Hag is a thing of the past. We are now fully in the Ruud Van Nistelrooy era for as long as that might last. So we're excited about that as Manchester United supporters. Of course, I don't know how many of our listeners out there are Manchester United supporters, but you know, if any of them are, I'm sure they empathize with us. I'm sure there are other folks out there who have terrible sports teams all around. And the thing that probably all of them have in common is that they're all fans of the Miami Dolphins. And Kadeem, there have been better times to be a Miami Dolphin fan. And most of those better times were before either of us was born.
Yeah, I think a lot of the better times before I was even a fan. I think for the most part in my tenure as a Miami Dolphins fan, it's been mostly positive. And even when the Dolphins were losing, they were kind of meant to be losing. Like the Brian Flores years, for the first year anyway, it was like, hey, we're going to suffer some defeats, and fans were largely okay with it. If anything, they were more annoyed when they were winning at the end of the season. But yeah, this is probably one of the somewhat darker timelines, especially in my fandom as a Miami Dolphins fan.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes this particular timeline so difficult is that expectations were pretty high for this team. And I don't know I can't remember where you were with your preseason prediction on this Dolphins team, but I sort of suspected, and Aaron suspected as well, that we thought this team was going to take a little bit of a step back this season. I think we're surprised at how much of a step back they seem to have taken at this point. And I think it's fair to say there are still 10 games left in the season. But at this point, for this team to be 2-5 at a time where, you know, when I was doing my record prediction and I was going week by week, I suspected that this was where the Dolphins were going to be having their most success. And for them to come through what many people think is the softest part of their schedule and to come out of it 2-5, it's less than thrilling, shall we say.
Yeah, definitely. I'm again, I feel like I'm gonna be quite. I have a different opinion to you on this episode. I'm still quite like I'm still quite relaxed over here. That's not my post check word. That's just the word I'm using right now. I'm still quite relaxed. I think that kind of stems from seeing teams like the New York Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are in a similar boat in terms of records, but I guess don't have the excuses that the Dolphins have, if that makes sense. And again, excuses shouldn't be why the Dolphins are where they are, but I can only speak for myself when I say being 2-5 when your starting quarterback missed 4 games, I can legislate for that. If I was like a Jets fan and you've got Aaron Rodgers back, you've got Devontae Adams, you then fire your head coach and you're still losing games, I'd be a lot more worried about that. So I'm still not fully, you know, done with the season yet. But I also feel like I'm a minority in that opinion, I guess.
Makes sense. And you listen to when you listen to the team and how they are responding to it, the team is certainly not giving up on the season. And yes, I do believe I would agree with your assessment that it is fair to say that, yeah, we just had 4 games without our starting quarterback, and we had 1 game that he came back. The offense looked quite a bit better, but we fell short because the defense fell apart. And that's actually a very same old Dolphins trope, is that they can't do anything on offense, and then they finally get the offense going and the defense falls apart. That is like vintage same old Dolphins. But as you said, there are reasons to be optimistic if that is what you are inclined to do. And on this show, I think I don't know, that maybe me and Aaron are more cynical in nature, and so we are less likely to buy into that positivity, especially because it also feels like, frankly, Miami Dolphin fans have been making excuses for their team's failures for years and years and years. It's never because the team's just not good enough. It's always because of one shortcoming or another. And, I think there are certainly underlying issues that can be pointed at when you look at that. But, I won't begrudge you, feeling not so sky is falling. I think that's fair. And I think that's okay. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think because basically the way that I look at things now is that in order for the Dolphins to salvage anything out of this season, they are going to need to go on a monumental kind of run. I mean, I will say that looking at the AFC, there is a chance that making it to 9-7 could end up being good enough to sneak in as a wild card this year. But the idea that the Dolphins are going to be good enough to do that, I don't know that I believe that, mainly because in order for them to do that, they're going to have to do so many things that this team has not done at all in the Mike McDaniel era. They're going to have to go toe to toe with a team that is better than them and beat them. They're going to have to go on the road in the cold late in the season and win a game against a team that might be better than them. These are things that they haven't done. And so they're therefore things that I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to do, especially when you look at some of the things that Mike McDaniel has basically copped to, if you will. He's basically said that, he said in his press conference on Monday that he's optimistic because a lot of the things where the Dolphins are falling short are the things that they've been working on and the things that they've been getting better at. And my thought is, well, if you've been working on this since the offseason, why are you still falling short on some of those things is how I view it. But I think it's fair, and I'm not going to begrudge you that opinion. We're going to get into a little bit about this game against the Cardinals because this is the Cardinals reaction show. But before we do that, a reminder to everybody, if you're not doing so already, to make sure you're following us. You can follow me. I am on Blue Sky at amplifiedtorock.bsky.social. Kadeem, where can the people find you?
Mostly avoiding arguments on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, and I am at Kadeem Simmons, as it's spelled there, at Kadeem Simmons on Twitter. Like that's where I'm on them now, mostly just reading reactions and trying my best to not start Twitter arguments because I have better things to be doing in my time, like playing the new Call of Duty. But I'm normally there.
I wish Kyler Murray had spent more time playing the new Call of Duty instead of tearing up the Dolphins on Sunday with his best game of the season by far, but such is life. Make sure that you also subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Smash the like button on this video if you haven't done so yet. Share. Leave us a note in the comments. Let us know what you think of the Dolphins season so far. We're going to do a pulse check later. We want you to leave that in the comments as well. Make sure you download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere that you get your podcasts. And a special shout out to our friends at Dolphins Talk Extra. We've got some of them joining us live. Remember, our Monday night show is only live for Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers. So shout out to the guys in the chat. I see Robert Ashton is enjoying a 10-year-old Jura licking some wounds this evening. I like to hear it. Mr. McDolphin is in the house. Robert Ashton is there. John White is in the house. So we got a lot of folks in the house today. So it's excited to see our Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers joining us live. If you would like to get in on Dolphins Talk Extra, you can go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk and join for as little as $3 a month. We appreciate everybody that's done it so far. And if you want to get in on it, we're going to be providing content no matter how bad things get or how good things get. We're going to be with you every step of the way at Dolphins Talk Extra. So make sure you come join the fun. Kadeem, on Sunday, the Miami Dolphins lost a heartbreaker to the Arizona Cardinals, 28-27. And this was a game. I'm inclined to say it was a game of two halves, but it kind of really wasn't. Let's go through this game from positives, negatives, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you will. And we'll start with the good. And the only place to start is with the return of Tua Tagovailoa, who just by stepping in, you see how much he means to this team. Suddenly, you had this offense that was terrible, borderline unwatchable. Tua steps in, and suddenly it's a functional NFL offense again. Tyreek Hill is getting involved. Jalen Waddle is getting involved. The running game is good. The Dolphins open up the full playbook again, and they're able to move the ball, and they're able to look like a competent NFL offense for the most part. We'll get into some of the other things a little bit later. But, Kadeem, your thoughts on Tua's return to action?
I think it went as well as I think it went better than I expected. I was expecting some rust. I was expecting, the timing to be slightly off. But we didn't really see that. I think from from his own performance and what I saw of it, no, I think it looked like he hadn't missed a single game. You could argue that deep pass to Tyreek Hill, which was underthrown, that's not really like Tua. But it was like there's the clip that is doing around. It's the reverse pass. We kind of like behind the back flicked it up, and everyone's like, okay, you don't need to do that. But it's one of those things where for people who have argued or made the point that anyone can run this offense, all that kind of stuff. Listen, anyone can flick the ball behind their back, but there's a comfortability and just a natural feel to it in this offense. And yeah, the Dolphins scored 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air, and it was like, yeah, this is what you kind of expect from a competent NFL Dolphins offense in 2024.
Yeah, you could see it. It was just instantly Tua getting the ball out of his hands quickly. The timing route was there. The timing routes were there. He was on time. He was on schedule. And, he made it happen. We got to see Tua scramble in this game. And, he scrambled downfield and slid, which, that was one of the biggest pops that the Dolphins got all day, was Tua going on a run and sliding. It tells you all you need to know about this Dolphin season so far, but it was good. It was good to see him comfortable. It was good to see him back, and it was good to see him come out, basically unscathed. That's that's what you would have wanted to see. So it was certainly positive signs there. Again, in this game, the Dolphins running game was a great success. Devon Achane, for the first time probably all season, really looked like Devon Achane. He looked dynamic. He looked exciting. I thought Jalen Wright looked good. I wish we would have seen a little bit more of Jalen Wright, but again, I think he looked good. The Dolphins were crushing on the offensive line in terms of being able to run the ball and generate space. For the most part, Kadeem, again, it was just, this was as an offensive performance. And while there were certainly mistakes, and there were certainly, I think, I would say that the Dolphins left a bit out on the field. They could have done more on offense, if not for some mistakes that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But for the most part, it was very good to see the Dolphins offense just being a functional NFL offense again.
Yeah, I think, and maybe the reason I'm so calm or not, or I'm so relaxed, is that I'm kind of at a place now, not just for the Dolphins, but sport and life in general. I don't expect perfection, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, I want people to strive for perfection, but I understand that, sticking with the Dolphins offense, there's going to be drop passes, there's going to be interceptions, there's going to be stuff which makes you go, oh my days, what is going on? So, again, 2 returns after a month away, and that's what I said, it was better than expected. I 100% agree that there was some meat left in the bone, there was some yard left in the field, some points, especially. But I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. And again, as you say quite a lot, others have said as well, I'm not expecting perfection in October. I want to see gradual increases as the weeks go by. So save your best for, December, January. That's when I want to see the best. So yeah, the offensive line kept to a clean, gave the running backs, holes to run through. Were they perfect? No. But me personally, if you're expecting perfection in every single Dolphins game from the offense, I think that's kind of on you. And when you're let down, I personally can't really feel sorry for you, because this is a Madden and you're gonna see, imperfections basically.
That's true. There are always going to be imperfections. I think that what's difficult and what makes it harder to swallow is that the Dolphins have significantly wasted a lot of their margin for error with the way that they performed over, the first 5 games of the season, or the first 6 games of the season, really, with all of those losses and that 2-4 record that they had coming into this game. There wasn't a lot of room for error. And we've talked about that on the show before with the brain, with saying when that offense is not firing on all cylinders, your margin for error is so much smaller, because you don't have, it's not like when you're liable to break off a 20, 30, 40 yard pass or run at any moment. You have a bit more room for, okay, we ran it on 1st and 10 and we only got a yard, or we had a holding penalty, or we had something like that. You have ways to dig yourself out. When the offense is struggling, you don't have that margin for error. Basically, when the offense is struggling, you commit a holding penalty, the drive is essentially over. And in this game, as we transition to the bad, when the Dolphins offense made a mistake, when there were dropped passes or other things that killed drives, fumbles by the quarterback, what ends up happening is you're now relying on the defense to get the job done. And this Dolphins defense that a lot of people had been praising and giving a lot of credit to, and on our show, we have basically said the whole time, well, a lot of those stats are a smokescreen for this defense, because they've been giving teams short fields. So teams haven't had to do a lot of work. In the second half of the Buffalo game, the Bills basically didn't even have to play, because the Dolphins were just so inept offensively. And then Tua got hurt. And it was like these teams haven't had a whole lot to do against this defense. So now when they finally were tested up against a real NFL offense, a dynamic NFL offense with a dynamic NFL quarterback, this defense failed the test miserably, which again left the Dolphins very little margin for error when it comes to mistakes on offense, whether that be execution or play calling. Left themselves no margin for error, and the result was Dolphins ended up falling short in the game. So, Kadeem, I need your assessment of this Dolphins defense that was basically torn to shreds by, to be fair, an excellent performance by Kyler Murray.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I guess I was on the side of, hey, this Dolphins defense is pretty good. Again, caveat, they hadn't really played many good quarterbacks, but as again, I and many others say, you can only play what's in front of you. It's not the Dolphins' fault that they played a returning Anthony Richardson. Yes, they lost, but that's who they played. Jacoby Brissett, like that really isn't their fault. And I think the issue, it kind of goes back to the offense as well, but the defense. That margin for error, like if the offense, goes 3 and out, cool, fair enough. If the offense turn the ball over, it is what it is. But this Dolphins defense doesn't generate turnovers. So it's like when the defense is on the field, either two things are going to happen. They're going to, and it's the same for most teams, so it's nothing amazing, but the Dolphins offense aren't going to get the ball back unless it's punted back to them or they've just given up points. It's not like, hey, Dolphins offense, went 3 and out. Okay, we're going to give the ball back to you. It's like, no, that interception isn't coming. And this Dolphins defense can't generate a pass rush, or at the very least, can't get to the quarterback. So again, it's, hey, they were very good at stopping the run yesterday. There were loads of negative run plays. Great, brilliant. I thought that without Zach Sealer, that would be an issue, but it wasn't. But especially in basically that fourth quarter, when the Dolphins offense hadn't scored any more points, there were no sacks, there were no key stops, and that's what basically let the team down. And again, it's like you said, it's so same old Dolphins that a Dolphins defense that was averaging giving up like 10 points per game over the last few games, then decided to give up 27 when the offense had if someone had said to you beforehand, Tua's going to come back and the Dolphins offense is going to score 27 points, you would go, hey, that's a win. Because the Dolphins defense, even if they give up 10 points in the first half, second half, they figure things out. And first half was what, 7 points? Second half was 20, and it's like, or 18, 2 plus a safety. And yeah, they chose the worst week to not find a way to stop Kyler Murray and essentially Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great week for Murray and Harrison. I mean, they both had excellent performances, probably their best of the season in this game. But it comes back to the fact that the Dolphins simply could not generate any kind of pass rush unless they were bringing a blitz, unless they were bringing extra men. They could not get any pressure on Kyler Murray, and that is where you see the exposure of the lack of depth on this team's defense. The fact that Sealer was missing, and the fact that you're relying on, 30-something-year-old Calais Campbell, and you're relying on Deshaun Hand, you're relying on Benito Jones, and you're missing Jalen Phillips, and you're missing Bradley Chubb. You saw it. You saw the effects of that. The Dolphins just could not generate any pressure unless they were bringing the blitz, and they drew up blitzes, and the blitzes seemed to work. And you got to give Kyler Murray credit. He was able to get out and make plays. And then you saw the failure of the Dolphins secondary and linebackers to be able to come up with the big play when the pass rush couldn't get home. When Kyler Murray was able to scramble, the Dolphins were unable to keep their men locked down there. And so, yeah, as Mr. McDolphin mentions, Trey McBride had a big day, and he's becoming one of the best tight ends in the league right now. So that's another connection that was working well for Arizona in this game. So it was a struggle all around, and it was, for lack of a better word, it was frustrating. Which leads me to the ugly part of this game, which for me, there's a couple different aspects of it. One is obviously the sloppiness, the fumbled snap. And if you don't want to put blame solely on Tua for the fumbled snap, it hit him in the hands. So you're an NFL quarterback. You're a $200 million NFL quarterback. You need to handle that snap. That's one. But you can put some blame on Aaron Brewer for the snap. Snap issues have been a common theme for the Miami Dolphins. But drops, wide open drops by Jalen Waddle, who it's been a problem for, and Jonnu Smith, who it really hasn't been an issue for. When you have those kinds of drops, again, it sets you back and makes it hard to dig out. So that was one aspect of this game that was, again, quite ugly and contributed to the overall problems. Another was the play calling, the clock management. And it's a similar refrain with Mike McDaniel. And it's been one of the things that has frustrated me to no end with Mike McDaniel, because as much as he talks about accountability and as much as he talks about needing to get better and needing to improve, these are areas where we've been looking for him to improve for 3 years. When you're in the second half and you're running the ball with great success and you're gashing the defense and Jalen Wright is going for 9 yards a carry, why aren't you giving him more run? Like what is the deal that you need to go back to Mostert as opposed to Jalen Wright? Why are you throwing the ball when you could just be running it late in the game? When you're just, again, getting away from what you're doing well. You're owning the line of scrimmage in this game when you're running the ball. So why don't you keep doing it? Because you were having success with it. And then you can go back to late in the first half, and it's one of those things that will seem, and it may have seemed trivial at the time. And to be fair, there were stretches of this game where I thought Mike McDaniel had a very good game calling the game, but there were sections where, again, his same weaknesses were exposed again. And one of those was late in the first half, where he wasn't aggressive enough about trying to get the touchdown. It was like he was so concerned about wanting to use up all the time, which, fine, I get it. But he was so concerned about that he wasn't aggressive enough to try to go after a touchdown at the end of the half. Ends up having to settle for 3, which, all things considered might not be a huge deal, but when you look at this being a game that the Dolphins lose by 1 point, becomes a big deal, right? I'm not saying the Dolphins lost the game because Tua fumbled a snap and flips it through the end zone for a safety. But when you lose a game by 1 point, you look at that and you go, that is one of the factors that, had it not happened, maybe the Dolphins come out victorious. So, Kadeem, there were good things in this game. There were bad things, but when it comes to turnovers and poor play calling, from poor decision making and game management by Mike McDaniel, all of it equates to a lack of complementary football for the Miami Dolphins. And that is how you end up losing a game 28-27 as the time expires.
I think I said it. I might not have. I thought there were going to be a few things that we kind of disagreed on. For the most part, thought McDaniel did call a very good game. The one thing that I can't defend, and it's like a running joke between me and Charlie and other Dolphin fans, is this obsession when you get into the red zone, throwing goal line fade to Tyreek Hill. Dude, stop doing it. Just, like, it's like, I don't know if it's a McDaniel calling it or if it's a Tua calling it. It's like they see you one-on-one Tyreek Hill. It's like, that's what I'm going to. And it's like, hey, if Tyreek Hill was 6'7", then I don't mind doing it. But it's not, but like, he's not. And then like, it works once against maybe the Chargers or whatever. I don't care. That's the play that has to come out of the playbook. It makes no sense. It's not, the success rate on that play is so small. Stop doing it. So that's one of those things that's like, hey, Mike, I'm trying to defend you from everyone else here, but you aren't giving me much leverage when you keep on doing stuff like that. Again, the run game, I agree to an extent. The Dolphins had so much success. I feel like a few weeks ago when everyone was saying, stop running east to west, start running north to south, we found success. And you saw it yesterday when the Dolphins ran the ball up in between the tackles, everyone was great. And then in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, it's like, hey, we're going to start running stretches and tosses. It's like, dudes, don't do that. And if you are going to do that, don't do that with Raheem Mostert. Like Raheem Mostert, between the tackle guy, please stick to that. So yeah, there are a few things where I'm like, it's ugly, it's annoying. I feel like at this point, it's just what we have to accept with Mike McDaniel. When I'm like, I hate to say that, I can't imagine he's going to get away from that. Like I can imagine being a Super Bowl. It's you're on the goal line. If you score a touchdown, you win, and it's going to be an end zone fade to Tyreek Hill. And it's like, dude, like you at that point you deserve to lose. It's Dolphins beat the Super Bowl. I'll just take that. Like that is what it is. And yeah, I had this discussion with Charlie. I do agree we need to see more of Jalen Wright. At this point, I don't think it's at the expense of Devon Achan, so it comes from at the expense of Raheem Mostert. But I still think Raheem Mostert probably gives you extra stuff in like the pass blocking game, which might be why Jalen Wright isn't getting more running back carries. And if for people who don't understand that, to me, it's a case of Jalen Wright is on the field more, but when he is on the field, it's going to be a one play. And I think maybe that's me being too simplistic. Maybe, if I watched the game back, that he was actually, his pass blocking was really good or whatever. But I just feel like until he can, I'm choosing to believe, and maybe it's that copium, that until he can be a fully trusted guy in the pass game as well in terms of blocking and stuff like that, it might limit his carries. But again, that is based on nothing McDaniel said. That is 100% me. And if I am wrong, then I will hold my hands up and go, hey, again, McDaniel, I tried to defend you. If that's not the case, then yeah, find a way to feature Jalen Wright, and while he's giving you 9 yards per carry, just keep on going until it drops to 2.1 yards per carry, and at that point we can have a discussion.
Yeah, I'm looking to see snap counts in this game, and let's see. Jalen Wright was on the field for 3 plays. He got 3 snaps in this game, and he carried the ball on 2 of them. So your theory is accurate at this point. Based on that, I don't know offhand. I got to go back and take a look at the game film, what the other play was that he was on the field where he didn't get the carry. But that's kind of the situation that we are looking at here with Jalen Wright. And, I think we're not terribly far away from the Dolphins basically needing to shift into evaluation mode. I know that this team is not fully going to do that in all likelihood until they are mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. But I mean, shoot, you look at where they sit right now. We just finished week 8, and the Miami Dolphins are 2-5. They are 3.5 games behind the Buffalo Bills. If they lose in Buffalo next week, they will be 2-6 behind the 7-2 Buffalo Bills. They'll be 4.5 games back, having lost the season series to the Bills, which basically makes them 5.5 games back of the Buffalo Bills, and they'll have 9 games remaining. So, I mean, by that point, the division is basically gone. And, and then you're looking at essentially having to run the table in order to get into the playoffs, because I think you're going to, 10-7 would probably get you in, but 9-8, I think you're probably on the outside looking in. So, the Dolphins it's getting to be dire straits for this team this year. So I think soon we might end up seeing them shift into evaluation mode. It might be time to let's see what we've got with Channing Tindall. Let's see what we got with Mo Kamara. Let's just put them all out there and let's see what we got, because, we're basically running out of time for this season to mean anything else. Kadeem, is there anything else from this Dolphins-Cardinals game that you want to touch on before we shift to our pulse check?
Yeah, it's funny how the injury to Braxton Barrios may have been an awkward blessing in disguise, because in the return game you saw Dwayne Eskridge and I believe was it Malik Washington both looked pretty good. Could have broken a really big one. So that was really helpful. But while the Dolphins found 2 potential receivers, has anyone seen Odell Beckham Jr.? Like, has anyone seen him? Like, and I think there was, I think it was a 3rd down catch to Tyreek Hill on a curl route. And I was like, oh, there's Odell Beckham, because Odell Beckham was lined up next to him. And people were like, Odell's playing. I'm like, no, yeah, Odell Beckham is playing. He just, this again, maybe it's Tua and Odell haven't really found that connection yet where he's going to look to him in certain situations. But at this point, would you, again, you talk about evaluations, would you not be better off just giving those snaps to Malik Washington or whoever? Because Odell Beckham on a 1-year deal, if he's not going to get targets, he's not going to come back next year. And you need to see what you have from, again, Malik Washington. Again, Erica DeCarma, has anyone seen Erica DeCarma, and, you know, other potential wide receivers you have on the roster?
Yeah, I said preseason that Braxton Berrios, my hot take was that he doesn't make this roster. And I'm convinced he only ended up making the roster because other guys got hurt. Washington got hurt as Ikama was dealing with an injury. And it was because of that Berrios snuck on. And the fact that Odell Beckham was also dealing with an injury. All of that was how Berrios snuck onto this roster, because Berrios is, with all due respect to the guy and his social media wife, he is, as the kids say, mid. Like at best, at best. And it was like, and that was another thing. We had a couple people with their one hot take for this game suggest that Malik Washington might return a kick for a touchdown. But seeing him back there and seeing him on a return, it was like, whoa, hello, there's a spark that we haven't seen. And same thing with D. Eskridge. In fact, D. Eskridge is with what was oh gosh, somebody put out a tweet today. I gotta look this up here. D. Eskridge on the season. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I'm gonna vamp as I do.
I'm thinking of it. But, is he the third?
Here it is.
The third receiver, or leads the third person with top target, something like that.
He said Marcel Louis Jacques tweeted, with 36 yards on 2 catches, D. Eskridge has the 3rd most receiving yards of any Dolphins wide receiver this season. Thank you, Chris Greer. I mean, that's absurd. But looks like we have maybe got a little something with D. Eskridge there, because he's a dynamic little player, and he's been pretty good. So I kind of like it. I kind of like what we've seen from D. Eskridge. All right. It's just about time for a pulse check here, but first we need to hear a word from our sponsor. The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. So, Kadeem, we got to get you shopping at Caneswear.com. They ship it international, so you can get in there. You can get out there and get your stuff. I know there are places in the UK where you can get officially licensed merch, and you don't have to pay for the international shipping and all that, but all right. It's we've talked about the Dolphins, we've talked about the Cardinals, we've been disappointed, but now it's time to check your pulse if you're not fired up. That's right. It is once again time for a Dolphins Talk Pulse Check. This is where we ask you for one word to tell us how you feel about the Miami Dolphins right now. So let us know if you're watching on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Let us know in the comments what is one word to describe how you feel about the Miami Dolphins right now. As always, I want to start with some answers that we got from our Discord, and you can have access to the Discord if you become a Dolphins Talk Extra subscriber for as little as $3 a month at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. John says broke. Patrick Mullen says resigned. Rob Ashton says bemused. Mr. McDolphin says frustrated. Alex Pena disappointed. I'll tell you what mine is. And Kadeem, this is actually particularly relevant today, and I'll say that part of the reason that this is my word today is because I knew you were on the show today, so I wanted to do a little nod to our friends in the UK. Which, by the way, shout out, we got a number of Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers from the UK, and we appreciate them, including Rob Ashton, who's watching live this evening. But Kadeem, what is another way to say that Eric Ten Hag had been sacked? You could say that he was made
redundant.
He was made redundant. And that's my word to describe how I feel right now. Redundant. I feel like we're all just kind of going through the motions right now. And that there will be moments this season that the Dolphins will actually maybe bring us a little bit of joy. And there's going to be some good things that happen. But I feel like overwhelmingly we've seen who this team is right now. And barring a significant turnaround, I just feel like at this point, everything is redundant in terms of what we're seeing. Because I've seen this movie before where the Dolphins come in, high expectations, and then you see them get out there on the field and they just don't deliver. So that's kind of how I feel. And I also feel like we're probably not too far away from either Mike McDaniel and or Chris Greer being made redundant. To be clear, I don't think it's going to be something that happens mid-season, but I think we are edging ever closer to that being something that happens before that happens probably shortly after the season ends. I guess how things play out the rest of the way is going to have a lot to do with that. But let's see what some of the folks on Twitter had to say, Kadeem. So here we go. Lord Raphael says exhausted. Jordan Murray says stymied. Augusto is angry. Mike McCullough says same. FinFan says disgusted. Twitsy says resigned. Somerset Tim says numb. I'm assuming Somerset Tim is another one of our UK listeners. Victor Spotlow says hopeless. KF7821072411394 says over. Pard says bereft. Pudge masticates says melancholy. Timsky says apathy. Steven is indifferent. Costanza says rage. Chase is disappointed. Steve Travis, apathetic. Charlie 3113 just sends a poop emoji. Yacht Carlos says deja vu. That's kind of like redundant. Dreadlock Demon says poop. Jorge Fernandez gives me an angry emoji. Joe Wiles with a puking emoji. And Brett Harding says, well, it's the S word. It's a different word for poop. It's a family show, so I'm not going to say it on the air. If Aaron was here, he would just say it, but I'm going to keep it clean. So, Kadeem, the folks aren't too happy. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments. What is your one word to describe how you are feeling about the Miami Dolphins right now? Kadeem, what's your pulse check?
I say this as someone who, as I mentioned before, I'm not a long-term Dolphins fan. I haven't been through multiple rebuilds, multiple nearly moments. Like, the Dolphins haven't upset me for the past 20, 30 years of my life. So I say all of that to say my word is tranquil. Tranquil. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. got it eventually, got it right eventually. I'm still calm. And that comes from a place of, like I said earlier, when Tua went out and it was Skylar Thompson / Tim Ball / Tyler Huntley, I was expecting one win, maybe two at best. I head into the next game week not expecting a win. I didn't expect to beat the Cardinals. So I feel like because of that, I'm not too upset. And I also think, and it's probably won't discuss this today, but if the Dolphins decide to not fire anyone, no offense, Danny Crossman, I think your time is up. But hey, that's just my opinion. But
His time has been up for years now, I feel like.
yeah. But if Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel get another shot at this, I'm not angry. And I say that because the first 2 years, back-to-back playoff appearances, listen, the manner of the collapse, I understand, not good enough. But to me, one bad season under Mike McDaniel, which is what this is so far, I'm still relaxed. If this was year after year, I'd be angry. Very, very quickly, I looked at Dan Campbell's record when he started with the Detroit Lions. His first season, he was 10-1 or 0-10-1, and finished the season 3-13-1. And then the next season started the season 1-6. As Miami fans, we would have said, "Hey Dan, thank you. You played for us, but please get out of our building. Not good enough." The 49ers in their first 2 years with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch as their GM and head coaches, back-to-back losing seasons. They then went They then drafted Nick Bosa, reached a Super Bowl, but then went 6-10 the next year. I don't fans said, "Hey guys, thank you very much. Get out of our building." So yeah, I'm still relaxed. I might be smoking something completely different over here in London, and if I am, feel free to share it with me because I'm really relaxed right now. And yeah, but I also understand a lot of people disagree with me, and I totally understand that, and I genuinely understand that.
I think there is an argument to be made, and I'll say this. I think there is an argument to be made that the way that the Dolphins have built this roster right now, that they are going to be better off moving forward with their play, regardless of how this season plays out. They're going to be better off moving forward with their plan, at least in terms of how the roster is built. It makes sense with the core that they've committed to go forward for next season, and make the best of it. If they are not, if they're super far away, then so be it. But the way that this thing has been built, and this is something else that the Brand and I said, this was always the transition year for the Dolphins. They were going to be, they didn't go all in this offseason because they were playing the long game. They were playing the game of, let's see what happens when we get to, next year really is the kind of all in moment. It's the 2025 season. Now, things have gone horribly thus far this year, and I wouldn't begrudge anybody the idea that, well, I know that there are people out there that say Dolphins should never have given Tua the contract, and I just don't think that that's realistic. Because in the situation that the Dolphins were in, if they didn't give Tua a contract, they would have played him on his fifth-year option, and then they'd be in this position where they'd be looking at with no starting quarterback, essentially. So, and like when the whole build is built towards next year being the year, you can't do it without a quarterback. I also think that the whole idea of, let Tua play on his fifth-year option was geared towards the idea that, Dak Prescott was going to be a free agent at the end of this season, which no longer has happened. And so, that's not something that's not really an option anymore. So, listen, I get it. I as a long suffering Dolphins fan, I am of the opinion that, it's frustrating, it's disappointing, and you get your hopes up, and like to find yourself here after 8 weeks and things are already more or less done in terms of how the season has gone, it is very disappointing. It is very frustrating, particularly as somebody who does the Dolphins podcast multiple times a week. It's very hard when you're dealing with a team that has played as poorly as the Dolphins have on the whole. But I get it. I get it. And I understand. And I understand the point of view. And that's why one of the things that we always say on this show is, listen, there's no wrong way to cheer for your team. You can love your team how you want to love your team. And if you want to be angry and spit and yell and curse and swear and demand that people's jobs, and call for people's jobs, that's fine. And if you want to cheer and sit back and say, look, it's all good. We've got, next year it's all, we've got time, whatever. I get it. I understand if you want to be that optimistic. I'm not saying that that's necessarily how I'm going to feel, but I get it that that's how somebody feels. And so I appreciate you coming on and sharing that positive vibe with us. I appreciate that you're tranquil. It's kind of a nice way to end this episode, because later this week, we're going to do an episode previewing the Buffalo game, and that I just don't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of positivity to come out of that episode, frankly. But so I appreciate you coming on. Remind everybody where the people can find you and talk to us a little bit about what you got going on with Go Time Dolphins, which, by the way, seriously, and this is a shoot, one of my favorite podcasts.
So, if you're here and you've seen myself and Charlie as well, you will hear Charlie say a lot. And also Charlie says hi, like, loved you guys 100% always. Yeah, the relationship between my Dolphins and Go Time Dolphins is like no other two podcasts in the Dolphins community. Like, we just love each other so much. The similarity between myself and Josh as Man United fans, Dolphins fans, wrestling fans, are just absolutely brilliant. So you have to love it. But yeah, you can find me being very chilled and relaxed, to the point where some people think it makes no sense, over at Go Time Dolphins on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. And then, yeah, if not, I'm on Twitter, at Kadeem Simmons. And then finally, I'm playing Madden and Call of Duty on PlayStation 5. I'm just, for someone with a wife and a young family, I've been way too much time arguing with strangers about things that I have no control over, which is probably, again, why I'm so relaxed in my life, because at the end of the day, what really matters.
that part. Yeah, that's a big thing, right? Like I think about that often, especially when the Dolphins are bad. It is so important to have other things in your life that can bring you joy, and that where you can find your meaning. You shouldn't be seeking meaning in your life from your football team, regardless of who your football team is. There are other ways to do it. I mean, listen, I have the cheering for the Miami Dolphins, and my Miami Dolphin fandom is a significant portion of my life. It is a significant part of my life, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is my wife and my two kids. And that's what matters to me. And so I would hope that everybody out there within the sound of our voice has something, whatever it is, whether it's family, whether it's a job, whether it's, somebody in your community, whether it's religion, whether it's whatever it is in your life. Hopefully you've got something that can bring you that meaning and bring you that joy, so that when things don't go well for your football team, you'll have better things to do than go online and yell at strangers on the internet. Yeah. And listen, who among us hasn't ever yelled at a stranger on the internet? But come on, let's relax. At the end of the day, It's a football game, right? It's a football 100%. Game. So thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show, for watching. Make sure, again, subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Visit dolphinstalk.com each and every day. Download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Become a Dolphins Talk Extra subscriber at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. I will be back on Thursday, probably with another special guest. It's definitely not going to be Aaron, because that's going to be the day. I'm going to go live Thursday night. I'm going to take my kids trick-or-treating. I'm going to hand out some candy, and then I'm going to come in. I'm going to record a podcast with a special guest. And then probably shortly after that episode ends, Aaron and his wife are going to show up at my house because they're sleeping here that night before moving into their new place the next day. So it's a very exciting week for us. And then we'll be together to watch the Dolphins probably get pasted by the Bills. But we'll talk more about that later this week. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, see if I can do this with I'm a little under the weather if you can't tell, but here we go. Go Dolphins!